What's going on, Tigers? It's Aaron here, and today we're going to be discussing the first instrument-only flight, also known as the first blind flight. What is a blind flight? Well, a blind flight is just another name for an instrument-only flight. In a blind flight, you don't look out the windshield. Instead, you only use your in-flight instruments. Now, why would anybody in their right mind do that? Well, people have evolved to be on the ground for thousands of years, but planes, they've only been around for just over 100. When flying, your instruments are usually never wrong, but your senses very well can be. And oftentimes when flying through clouds or mist, you can't see out of the front windshield, so you must rely solely on your instruments. Just don't go flying when there's low visibility out. Um, yeah, have you guys ever been to Florida before? One minute it's a clear sunny day, and the next minute it's like a Category 5 hurricane out here. And with flights scheduled months in advance, this just isn't possible without massive delays. You really want to make Florida man angry? I didn't think so. And the reality is, a good pilot can fly just as well without being able to see out of the plane. Alright, so that seems cool and all. But who was the first person crazy enough to try this? Let's see here. Lieutenant James Doolittle. Why is it always the US military? Anyway, Mr. Doolittle was a very smart dude. He had a doctorate in aeronautical engineering from MIT, and after this, he went on to become a very successful pilot during World War II. He flew the first blind flight on September 24th, 1929, and many newspapers picked up on the story, and it went on to attract nationwide attention. Now keep in mind, the flight was only 15 minutes long, and that seems kind of short, but that's like 3 times longer than any one of these presentations. This is where his plane took off and landed. It's called Mitchel Field. It used to be an Air Force base, but was decommissioned in 1961. The image on the right is the oldest picture I could find. It's from 1968, which is almost 40 years after the flight, but it should still give you a good idea of what it looked like at the time. Image on the left is what the area looks like currently. It houses a college, university, museum, coliseum, and many other buildings. Did the lieutenant do it all by himself? Well, he wasn't that crazy. No, it was a collaborative effort between many different people. Here's a few examples. Guggenheim Fund's Full Flight Laboratory, U.S. Army Air Corps, U.S. Department of Commerce, Sperry Gyroscope Company, Kollsman Instrument Company, and Radio Frequency Laboratories. Each of these did something different, like, for example, manufacturing the equipment that he used on the plane. What plane did he fly? Well, he flew a NY-2 Husky aircraft with a covered hood so that he couldn't see out of the plane, which you can see here on the left. And on the right, you can see the instrument panel that he used to fly the plane. What advancements helped Lieutenant Doolittle accomplish this feat? Well, around the 1920s, there was a large interest in the aeronautical community to develop tools to assist pilots during conditions of low visibility. And they had tools already to show their altitude, attitude, direction, as well as airspeed. The problem was they had no way of knowing their spatial position, which made it impossible to land. Spatial position, by the way, is just the location of an object in space. To find out the location of the aircraft, they use radio communications like marker beacons and radio ranges, which allows an aircraft to determine its position relative to some specific point, like, for example, a runway that you could land on. So, how does this affect us today? Well, today you need something called an instrument rating in order to fly more than 50 nautical miles or at night. An instrument rating basically says that you're certified to fly during low visibility or cloudy conditions. To get an instrument rating, you need to demonstrate your ability to fly an aircraft using only the in-flight instruments and without looking out the front of the plane. And these are all my references. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. And that's my presentation. Any questions? No? No questions? Alright then, see you later.